So, Proton 6.3, I've been rather impressed with. I've played around with it a little bit over the last little bit, and I really don't have much else to say other than it works really, really well. So, I've been able to test it with Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas, and they both run flawlessly so far from what I've been able to mess with. Skyrim, I basically had a save that I had already been working on, and so I played a little bit in it, I think, for like a good 30 minutes. Fallout New Vegas, I kind of like started a new game, went off for a good 10 minutes, and that was about it. The biggest thing that I think now works is, where is it? Homeworld's Remastered Collection. So for the longest while, it had an issue where it wouldn't bring up the launcher, and so you had to go through some weird, wacky script method to launch each one individually. And then that stopped working with the script. But now in Proton 6.3, if it'll come up, give it a second. Okay, the launcher now comes up. Let me actually... So it now comes up, and you can select the game, and it plays just fine, pretty flawlessly. Mods work as well, so, I mean, you can now have Taidan ships in your campaign as well. But a lot of the games that I've had issues with previously have worked basically out of the box. So Skyrim had some weird, like, mouse sensitivity stuff and things like that. Fallout New Vegas, I'd get in for like 2 seconds and then it would crash out of nowhere. And so now those pretty much work. I haven't tried Fallout New Vegas with the DLC or anything, nor Skyrim, so I don't know how those will react. Oh, a couple other ones, like Halo has had slight improvements in performance, which is really impressive. Again, the only thing from that then is basically anti-cheat. And I know Valve is trying to work with easy anti-cheat to get that working, which would mean we could have anti-cheat in Halo and never think about like grinding points in Windows ever again. But then from there, what else was there? So Sonic Adventure 2 was one that I've had problems with working properly, and now it just works flawlessly pretty much. There is some frame skipping on my setup, but it's probably due to my resources. But other than that, it basically runs flawlessly. Sonic Mania has always run just fine. There were a couple others. I think Sonic Generations I haven't tried yet, but it basically runs just fine. Civi 3 still has issues. It basically does this whole black screen thing, and that's about it. Sad. Outside of that, Dawn of War has pretty much worked from the start. Dawn of War was one of the supported ones from the beginning, and I think... Where is Star... And Star Wars Battlefront 2 is basically one that they had said, like, yeah, this is basically going to start out of the box. They had, like, those select few games that worked. Supreme Commander 2 I haven't played around with in 6.3, but it has worked in the past pretty well. So, Synthetic has had a couple issues that I've had. But for the most part, from what I can tell, pretty much every game just works. Which... in the end has been Valve's goal, because like I was able to basically play through a whole game of Age of Empires as well without any problems, which is pretty impressive when you start up and then the game immediately crashes. I haven't tried AoE 2 yet to see how the multiplayer reacts, but I remember trying it a while ago in Proton, and it would kick the host from the game, which basically means you get an insta win if you play it from Linux, which is not bad, but it's interesting. Again, there were just some games that have pretty much worked. Like, I don't think I have Vicky 2 set to be running out of 6.3 now, but it just works. Some of them will probably still be configured to certain older versions, just purely due to the fact that those older versions are going to work a certain way. And then, yeah, I think I set that so that it sounds proper. But you may have to play with a couple different versions to figure out what works for each specific game, like always. But if you've had problems with nothing working, I would recommend trying to mess with Proton again in this go round, because the results might surprise you, because it did that for me just pretty well, which I'm excited to be able to hopefully like do a couple other things with it. One interesting thing is some of your older games, I know in particular, like Fable, when I messed around with it, it complained about like stuff. And so it's like, do you want to continue anyway or do it in safe mode? It's like, continue anyway. And it still ran flawlessly. It's an older game. So for your old games, Proton is probably your best bet, because I don't think Valve has anything like Pressure Vessel for Windows, because they've basically built that for Linux, which basically is like flat packing for each of your games so that they can continue to run on older Linux libraries, even though your system may be updated. And then outside of that, yeah, basically kind of play around with your stuff, and you should be able to find something that works. Some of the default stuff won't always work, so that's where you're going to have to like go to your properties, and then basically make sure that you have it forced to run a certain version or whatever. And then from there, it should basically play just fine. Again, you might have to like pick an older version or a newer version. It just depends. And some of the settings that I have or some of the things I have in my compatibility options are for my system, because I have extra things installed, like the Boxtron for DOS games and all. But anyway, go have fun, go play games. Basically, I've seen no like downsides to this, because I basically get as good or better performance for these games. I basically hardly even notice that it's playing in Linux, except for the fact that I look at my second monitor and see that it's got like the awesome WOM stuff and everything. But it's pretty exciting. I'm hoping that I can tweak a couple things so that it works decently well for streaming as well. So it'll be pretty fun to see. If you found this informative, I do have some give me money links, but other than that, Discord, Guilded, even XMPP, Matrix, I've got it all. It's all linked down in the description, so yeah, check it out.